My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hello, my name is Nancy Imbs. I'm with Polished. Glad to be here today, and I have a quote I'd like to share. It's about the ability to do anything you want, and it's about confidence. So if you believe in yourself, anything is possible.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Are you stressed about holiday gifting? Don't be. With Loop and Tie, giving great gifts is simple. Here's how it works. You choose a curated collection of stylish, artisan-made gifts at prices from $10 to $500 per gift. Then your recipients get to choose their own gift from the collection that you send. Go to loopandtie.com and use promo code Leader Assistant. That's all caps, 2 words, Leader Assistant, to get 20% off. And yes, they do ship internationally, so visit loopandtie.com and use the code Leader Assistant for 20% off. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with Nancy Imbs. Nancy is the founder of Polished, and we'll get into more about what Polished is and how she helps leaders. But Nancy, thanks for being on the show, first of all.
Well, it's my pleasure, Jeremy. I'm thrilled to be here.
And what part of the country are you in?
I'm in the smack of the Midwest, St. Louis, Missouri.
Very nice. Well, as many know, I was in St. Louis for 16 years or so of my life, up until last year, and so I just moved back to Kansas City, Missouri, but still in Missouri, so it's always fun to interview a fellow Missourian. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad that you feel the same way about St. Louis. It's a great place, as is Kansas City.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your career, how you, maybe what your first job was, and then kind of how you transitioned into your experience and what you learned and why you started Polished.
Okay, sure. That sounds great. So yes, I started my career right out of the gate after graduating from the University of Missouri, which is in Columbia. They have a great journalism school, and I was a graduate of the journalism school. So my first real job was an editorial assistant for St. Louis Magazine. I have had other jobs, waitressing and bussing, tables, etc. But this is sort of was on my path to my career as a editorial assistant for St. Louis Magazine. I was responsible for checking, for proofreading, ensuring that the copy was clean, there were no typos or grammar mistakes. And they also gave me a column, which was a monthly column. The magazine was out every month. And I maintained this, it was called Touts at the time, and it was getting different products from different stores and touting those in hopes that people would, frequent or visit these small businesses, as well as, hate to say this because there's always advertising involved with the magazine, potentially advertising for the magazine. So that was my first job. And chasing police cars and fire trucks after that came as a reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I worked for the Dallas Morning News and really just kind of did everything that a reporter would do. I have this penchant for curiosity. I like to ask questions. I like to get to the root of a problem. And so it really worked well in my career. But as I was growing in age, if you will, I also was starting a family, and not that the reporter gig is not a good job, because it gave me great satisfaction and I was passionate about it, but I needed to kind of transition to where maybe it was a little more financially rewarding. And so I left that the reporting or the media sector to work in the marketing and communications arena, and still using my skill set of writing and communicating, but just focusing on kind of in that marketing space. And so I did that and have had the fortunate experience of working with various administrative assistants, executive assistants, office admins, etc., and really grew this kinship with them. And it's funny now that I'm, into 7 years of my own, having my own consulting practice as a professional development consultant. It's strange or wacky, if you will, of how things just kind of come full circle. I have found a niche with admins and executive assistants. Not only do I connect well with them, I feel like I really have this appreciation and empathy, but I have great relationships with lots of different organizations and get to travel to various conferences. I do blogging for various trade orgs, etc. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, Jeremy, but starting off as a journalist and then transitioning into the marketing communication space and then landing kind of finally listening to my fire in my belly. This fire was becoming an inferno. Nancy, start your own business. You want to do this, do it. I had this fear, just like all of us. We have, no risk, no reward, so to speak, but also, golly, I was getting insurance, health insurance through my company. I had a great assistant who had my back. I had a 401k. I had a steady paycheck, all these wonderful things that we can take for granted. But this noise inside me was becoming to the point where I really needed to stop and pay close attention to really what was going to be meaningful in my life. So I launched Polished like 7 years ago, roughly. And my biggest regret, and I'm saying this for future entrepreneurs, or I know you juggle lots of balls and have different things going on, and different businesses, Jeremy, going on. Don't not do it, right? The net will be there. Jump. The net will be there is what I like to tell people. Yes, there's always a job that we could go to if we fail, but if we don't really listen to our heart and what our passion is, then sometimes we'll be at that point in our life where we'll have a regret. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for the short version of your story and career. Tell us maybe a couple stories or about your experience working with executive assistants.
Sure. Well, as you know, Jeremy, preaching to the choir here, executive assistants are the pulse. They're the heartbeat of an organization. They're the ones who not only focus on the now factors, things that have to be done today, scheduling, making sure that invoices are sent out, expenses are paid, etc. So I before I launched Polished, I was working for a fairly large healthcare organization based in St. Louis, but they were all over the Midwest. And I was the VP of marketing and branding for the foundations. And they had, at the time, they've since grown because they've purchased more hospitals. But at the time, there were over 19 foundations within the hospital system. And so I had the privilege of working with a rock star of an admin. And she was the type of person that could anticipate your needs before you even asked her. So working with, and I've, before that, obviously, in my career, I've had the privilege of working with other admins. My experiences, quite frankly, they're the can-do people. Most of them have this level of, just give it to me and I'll get it done. Just very assertive, detailed-oriented, high level of respect for people. And you don't often see that today. With COVID, obviously, we're so much in the virtual space. But even face-to-face, before COVID, before the pandemic, people can get, our tempers could flare. But it seems like the admins always maintained this level of respect, this decorum, where really their soft skills always were, they raise the bar most always in the workplace. So I have great experiences working with admins.
Nice. So tell us about, let's kind of go over a couple different topics on, speaking of soft skills. Emotional intelligence. So I talk about emotional intelligence in my book briefly, and how I believe it's a key part for assistants to future-proof themselves. As more and more automation takes away some of those repetitive tasks that we all do, but specifically that assistants do, emotional intelligence is one way to stand out and future-proof yourself, because being human is becoming more and more important in the automated age that we're in. So could you tell us, just share some tips on how we can develop our emotional intelligence?
Yes, and thank you, Jeremy. I, like you, look at emotional intelligence as sort of the apex of leadership skills. And I really love the theories and the principles behind Daniel Goleman. He is, if you will, the 21st century guru of emotional intelligence, this behavioral psychologist who really outlines these 5 leadership domains that help elevate you to a higher level of leadership. And so one of them is this area of self-awareness. Self-awareness and empathy are 2 of these top leadership skills that most admins possess. And it's interesting because they're the ones who, as you know, wear all the hats often in their job. And they are so self-aware in their job skill sets, their confidence, their emotions, their triggers, that they are almost cloning themselves to their boss. In other words, their manager, whomever, they're the ones who knows how their boss, based on their boss's emotions or just his or her demeanor, they're the ones who can tweak their behavior, right? Their emotions to enable to have, this conversation that is clear and concise. And then the empathy factor. I mean, golly, admins juggle so many tasks, and yet they have this empathy, this compassion to want to help and to be the right-hand man, not only to their direct report, but also to others in the department. I've seen it more often than not, which could be a curse sometimes, right? It's like learning how to say no in a positive way. But emotional intelligence, as you said in your book, it's all about the ability to be aware and to manage emotions and relationships. Mm-hmm. And also it's the ability to moderate your emotions effectively. And I've seen it time and time again. We live in a very stressful, competitive global work world today. And it's easy to not practice great self-management or self-regulation skills. But over and over again, it's these rock star of admins who know, I don't know if there's, their time management skills. They just know how to, put things in perspective and not, have a knee-jerk reaction.
What would you encourage assistants to do when their executive is not very emotional intelligent?
Oh, boy. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's so fun. And we've all had experiences, whether they're your boss or a friend or a colleague, whatever, where perhaps, they have zero emotional intelligence and that, because you want to balance the beauty of emotional intelligence. And I'm going to use a quote that David Goleman uses all the time. In essence, we have 2 brains, one that thinks and one that feels. And you have to have that balance. But if you have, like think of a seesaw, if you have one that's so top heavy and it's just the emotional part, holy cow, that is going to be destructive potentially to your career. And conversely, if you flip the teeter-totter to the other side and you have one who's just so logical, that can be very hard to communicate and be productive with somebody because they're not emitting any emotions. They're focused on, logic and data and give me the facts and nothing but the facts and, no small talk and all this and that. So it's difficult to gain that rapport. So when you work with somebody who has zero emotional intelligence, and that tells me that they're either very logical or so left brain, that it's tricky. But there is a way that you can get over this challenge. And what I would suggest is just with different personalities. Like we've all worked with people who are maybe tightly wound or maybe very blunt or direct. You have to almost talk, your personality styles mirror that personality style, because they may not have the breadth of even if they're senior level, executive or leader, they may not know how to turn the switch to a different way. So if you can, and I hate to say this, but mirror a little bit of their personality, then you'll be able to get a better rapport and better consistency with clarity with your communications.
So basically, give them a taste of their own medicine, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds awful, but the other thing is, if some people like a left brain, and it's very difficult to talk to somebody who lacks emotional intelligence because empathy, I mentioned self-awareness and empathy are the two top leadership skills. You wouldn't believe the empathy training that's going on right now in that C-suite because they're lacking it. And there's become this movement now where we should have empathy in the workplace. And I don't want to get on a whole different topic, but there is all these gender disparities today. For example, if a man cries, he is empathetic, he's compassionate, he's caring. Now, if a woman cries in the workplace, we're out of control, we're emotional, we're hard to deal with, right? And so there's, or even communication skills. If a man was very, assertive, that's polished, that's great. He's getting his message across. People are listening to his every word. But if a woman was very assertive in her language, then she, I hate to say the B word, but she gets coined bossy or all these negatives that come with it. So there's these gender inequalities that happen even with soft skills that I think as women we owe it to ourselves to kind of help advocate to kind of eradicate those disparities.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen that, Jeremy, where if somebody, perhaps you, for example, were sharing something in an articulate and assertive way, and then a woman chimed in and did the same, she may be a little overbearing, but she's not.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, unfortunately, it's definitely prevalent in corporate America and really the world, but yeah, something that especially assistants who are 97% female in the world have to deal with that all the time. So
yeah.
Okay, so that was super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to cover two other topics before we wrap up. First one is giving feedback. So in giving effective feedback. The scenario maybe is you're an executive assistant and you're trying to work well with the chief of staff in the office, and you have to give some feedback that maybe it's some difficult feedback for the other person to hear, but you want it to be professional and effective. What are some tips on giving effective feedback?
Yes. So and I agree with you, difficult conversations are just that, difficult. But we haven't really talked about, and I've been using the word assertive. When you speak in the assertive way, that ultimately allows you to stand up for yourself yet respect others and get that win-win. It's something that most of us don't really take advantage of, but assertive communications, quite frankly, is the way to deliver difficult conversations or any type of communication for that matter. But when you deliver that conversation, there's like three skills, there are three different elements that one should possess. One is the confidence, and you have to come in prepared. You have to come in controlled, right? And just like anything, you want to be consistent. So life is not always just a bed of roses. We're going to have difficulty times, and lots of those difficult times require having that tough conversation. So going in with this preparation, and even if you're not confident in yourself, there's lots of ways that you can boost your confidence, and that is through being prepared, knowing what you're going to say, speaking in a controlled, assertive manner. The other part that is very important is to be clear. Often we'll talk in circles. We won't want to hurt that person's feelings. We'll accommodate them, and because it's a difficult topic, we don't want to have. But if you're clear, that confidence will start to come through, and it's almost like magic. I mean, things just flow fluidly out of your mouth. And the other way to deliver this is being concise. We don't want to ramble. We want to obviously deliver our information, in a controlled manner, like I was saying. But we don't want to go into situations, especially if we know that it could kind of trigger. Now, if we were in a negotiating arena and we wanted to have him look at your side, then of course we'll say things that would create a little trigger moment. But if it's a difficult conversation, you always want to be respect, empathy, having that self-awareness, thinking about how that person would feel, right? But always in the assertive way. So being relaxed, keeping your voice relaxed, delivering the information in a calm, controlled way, respect, like any other skill. It takes practice. But the toughest part is doing it. But if you go in prepared with the number one rule, chances are that you'll get this mutual resolve, and it won't be as tough as you thought after the end.
So would you recommend like writing out word for word what you're going to say?
No, I mean, I don't think we want to be, that's the other thing. It's like, everybody can spot a phony baloney if we're scripted or we're reading from cards. Being yourself, throw away, your note cards, remove your spectacles, focus on that person with eye contact, talk to them in a way that's authentic you, being real. Most people will respect that side of you. Of course, we want to, we have to say what's the most difficult thing to say. Now, I'll give you a quick little example. I had a situation where a teammate of mine who reported to me always would come into my office very upset. It was every single day coming into my office and crying, having problems at home, was unhappy with himself. It was really, I had a lot of empathy for him, and I felt, I felt like I get it. I was walking in his shoes sometimes. But when it kept repeatedly happening, I finally had to say to him, and this was a difficult conversation, but I said it in a controlled, clear, confident way. And I said, look, Joe, I get it, and I feel for you, but your work is starting to really slack off here, and everybody else is having to pick up, what you're not able to manage. So basically, I'm going to offer two opportunities here. I'd like you to take a little bit of time off just to kind of get things together here. Come back in 3 days, okay? And then take advantage, because at the time in this work setting, we had resources to help, with counseling or such. And I said, now, we're gonna do this. You're gonna talk to somebody, and you're gonna really focus on getting your mind stronger. But if things aren't working out, we'll have to I don't want you to leave, but I may have to put you at a lesser role until you can get back in control. It was a very difficult conversation, especially with his mindset. But as it turned out, he did seek help. He ended up getting demoted, which is terrible, but it was the best thing for him. He's happy. He said that was too stressful for him. He couldn't manage all this. He knows he has growth opportunity, but for now, he's doing great. And sometimes when you share resources or options or alternatives to whatever that topic of discussion is, that opens the door to possibilities of improvement.
Love it. So what happens when, or what would you do if it went south? So if you go in and you keep it short and sweet, you to the point, professional, don't let the emotions get into it, but then the other person just flips out. How do you respond in those scenarios? Yeah,
well, again, you have to maintain this assertive, calm, cool, collective person. We don't want to react like that person. We've all had experiences, I'm sure, where we've regretted. That's why I always say, take the 24-hour rule. Do not send that email. Do not have that conversation. Go home, sleep on it, and I guarantee you the next day you will have a whole sense of urgency or not. So take the 24-hour rule. But in this situation, if somebody is really acting, in a way that's, not what you expected or just out of control, you might have to say, you know what, this is a timeout. I think we need to take time out. Let's talk about this tomorrow, or let's set a time next week, because it's clear that you're upset and perhaps you're not thinking clearly. I'm happy to continue the conversations, but I think we really need to take a break right now.
Nice. Yeah. That's the space, taking space when that's the hardest part, in my opinion, with emotional intelligence, is taking space when you just want to get it out of your system right now. It's like, all right, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And process it and respond instead of react.
Yes. And that's the beauty of, one of Daniel Goleman's leadership domains is self-regulation. And sometimes if you feel like you're losing control or you're not controlling, you're letting your impulses control you, then, if you're in a meeting, you can say, you know what, I'm going to excuse myself and just grab some coffee, or I'm going to ask if we can table this discussion for later in the day. Go outside, go for a walk, take deep breaths, do some meditation, whatever it is. These are things that will deliberately and effectively help you kind of calm down a bit. Because you're right. I mean, it's great to emote these happy, joyous feelings, and when we're so happy for somebody, when we're we're not self-regulating, that's okay. Somebody passed the bars, or an admin just celebrating her birthday, and when somebody brought in a big birthday cake for her, we can be joyous and excited, but it can really impair or impede your career if you become too emotional and have these reactions that are out of professional line. So we just need to be really mindful of that, because it can really derail your career.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Nancy, this has been super helpful, and I know it's just the surface of a lot of these issues that I know many assistants listening are probably really intrigued and want to go deeper. But as they say, that's all the time we have on the show for today. So how can people connect with you, reach out to you if they want to dig deeper and learn more?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, I invite you to email me. I'm at Nancy@STLpolished, POLISHED.com. Feel free to shoot me an email or go to my website, which is stlpolished.com, and you can actually send a question through the contact page. I'm very good at responding. I want to help. I get it. I may not have been an admin, but I get the stresses of real life work. and I would love to be your support. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to share my 2 cents.
Perfect. Well, we'll put those links in the show notes so people can reach out. And yeah, thanks again. Enjoy St. Louis on the other side of the state. About 3.5 hours. Yeah, go Chiefs. They've had a rough start this year, but hopefully I can listen to this podcast episode in the future and think, oh, they really came out of that strong.
Absolutely. And I look forward to reading your book, Jeremy.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, take care. And thanks so much for being on the show. My pleasure. Thanks again for listening to my conversation with Nancy. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/144.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.